It, of course, was this audacious handshake on a napkin deal with a much, much younger President Crow to transform our downtown from really a nice collection of things to an urban place by betting on the power of education. You know, and this was not the direction that the downtown business and political leadership was going, but among his abundant skills, Mayor Gordon is a great political strategist. We used to call him 9-0 Gordon in the beginning until Sal came back, then it was 8-1 Gordon. So Mayor Gordon's vision and political leadership and the collection of people that came together. You know, I remember a Saturday morning with President Crow and with Mayor Gordon and Frank Fairbanks and Cheryl Scully and Kevin Keogh and Rich Stanley and Jim O'Brien and Duke Ryder, kind of, bringing this whole thing together with help from Rick Neymark and Dave Cavazos and Jay Thorne, just an incredible collection of folks. I just want to conclude with one thing, because I think this is really representative of my friend Mayor Gordon. So as a group of early Athenian urbanists wrote nearly 2,500 years ago, we will never bring disgrace on this our city by an act of dishonesty or cowardice. We will fight for the ideals and sacred things of the city, both alone and with many. We will revere and obey the city laws, and will do our best to incite a like reverence and respect in those above us who are prone to annul them or set them at naught. We will strive unceasingly to quicken the public sense of civic duty. Thus, in all these ways, we will transmit this city not only not less, but greater and more beautiful than it was transmitted to us. And Mayor Gordon, you certainly did that.
Thank you so much, Dave. Next is ASU Director for Residential Life, Christiana Sletton. Please give her a hand clap as she comes to the podium.
Well, this is truly an exciting day for us, for those who live on campus, and for all of our students here downtown. As stated, I'm Christiana Sletton, AVP and Director for Residential Life here at ASU, and we are so excited because across our campus locations, we have 15,000 to 16,000 students who live on campus with us. And that is a great range of diversity and greatness that we have for our student body. These students are supported through the wide range and array of supportive services and programs that are embedded within our living communities. And I would like to echo the sentiments of my colleagues who've spoken before me of this well-deserved honor and recognition of Mayor Gordon and the renaming of downtown's first Residence Hall. Gordon Commons is home to 1,300 Sun Devils with varied majors in journalism, integrated science, health, nursing, public service, and management. When we opened in 2008, it allowed for students who were downtown to shift out of living in the hotels as they attended classes to transitioning into a well-supported living and learning community that not only facilitates their ability to be successful, but also develop their love and their passion for the Phoenix community. Now, for those of you who have lived on campus before, you know how invaluable that experience is. The important connection that it has to growth as a young adult, as well as the success and formulation of relationships. I remember my first time living away from home on a college campus. I went to a small university back in Michigan, and I recall the wonder and the excitement of that experience, coupled with the angst of whether I would make friends, whether I would find my way, and the mark that I wanted to leave on the world around me. Living on campus allowed me to thrive both academically and socially. And throughout that experience, I was able to create some of the most formative relationships in my life. it also be integrated into the fabric of the university in a way that no other experience could mirror. I'm still close friends with a number of my peers from over 20 years ago, and this summer, I'm attending the wedding of my very first roommate. You never know the substantial impact that these relationships will have on the trajectory of your life. Now, throughout the years, we've worked to collect data on the success of students who live on campus, and we know a few things. And what we know is that those who reside on campus have higher rates of connection to the university. They're more likely to persist to graduation. They have higher rates of well-being. The opportunity to have further connection to academic faculty supports, as well as close proximity to all of the varied resources available here at ASU, from the library, campus experiences, student life, and supportive services. Now, the students of Gordon Commons are primarily first-year students, also living away from home for the very first time, from all over the country as well as all over the globe. And I think last count we were at 158 countries or more than that represented here at ASU. Now, the students are all figuring out their way, their unique identity, and how they also want to contribute to the world. So we're excited, and Mayor Gordon, we appreciate the impact that Gordon Commons will have and make in the lives of our students. And thank you for being part of their Sun Devil story. Thank you.
Thank you. I now have the pleasure to bring to the podium Evan List, current student body president. At least that's what was in the program.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the July 3rd formal meeting of the Phoenix City Council. I'll call the meeting to order. Will the clerk call the roll?
Councilwoman Guardado.
Here.
Councilwoman Hodge Washington.
Here.
Councilwoman O'Brien.
Here.
Councilwoman Pastor.
Here.
Councilman Robinson.
Here.
Councilwoman Stark.
Here.
Councilman Waring. Vice Mayor Ansari.
Here.
Mayor Gallego.
Here. Police Chaplain Harry Sexton will begin our meeting today with an invocation. All right, we do not have the police chaplain, so would ask you to join us for a moment of silence. Thank you. Please remain standing. Councilman Kevin Robinson will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. We are joined today by a distinguished group, the Mandela Fellows, and I will recognize Kevin Robinson to welcome them.
Mayor, thank you very much. It is indeed a pleasure on my part to welcome Dr. Hector Zelaya and the fellows. It is, to give a little bit of background, it's the Mandela Washington Fellows, which is a United States Department of Justice, United States Department of State program that has been in existence, I believe, since 2014. What we have in our presence today, and they are welcome, are 25 fellows from 18 African countries, young emerging leaders, and they are here in the Valley to understand more completely about U.S. government, how we work, and they have an opportunity to watch us here conduct a formal meeting, obviously, but we welcome all of you. I know throughout the month that they are here, various folks will have an opportunity to interact with them. I know our very own city manager will spend some time with them. I have had the pleasure of simulating a government exercise, a 2-day exercise, for the last however many years we have been doing this, and we'll be doing the same thing later on this month with the group. So to the entire group, thank you very much for being here and welcome.
Thank you, Councilman. Elsie Duarte and Mario Barajas are here to provide interpretation. Elsie, would you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Thank you, Mayor. Hello, my name is Elsie Duarte, and together with my colleague Mario Barajas, we will be servicing as Spanish interpreters for today's City Council formal meeting. I will now take a moment to introduce ourselves to our Spanish-speaking audience and review some guidelines. Buenos días, bienvenidos a la reunión formal del Consejo Municipal de la Ciudad de Phoenix. Mi nombre es Elsie Duarte, y junto con mi colega Mario Barajas estaremos sirviéndoles hoy como intérpretes a nuestra audiencia de habla hispana. Deseamos pedirles antemano, si va a dar un comentario público, por favor, hable despacio, con claridad y evite tener distracciones de fondo. Finalmente, pause después de cada 1 o 2 oraciones para poder interpretar lo que esté diciendo de la manera más completa posible. Gracias. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Elsie. Will the city clerk please read the 24-hour paragraph?
The titles of the following ordinance and resolution numbers on the agenda were available to the public at least 24 hours prior to this council meeting and therefore may be read by title or agenda item only. Ordinances number G7135 through 7141, S50031 through 50070, and resolutions 22138 through 22142.
Would the city attorney please explain public comment?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Members of the public may speak for up to 2 minutes to comment on agenda items. Comments must be related to the agenda item and the action being considered by the council. General comments that go beyond the scope of the agenda item must be made in the citizen comment session at the end of the agenda. The City Council and staff cannot discuss or comment on matters related to pending investigations, claims, or litigation. The City Code requires speakers to present their comments in a respectful and courteous manner. Profane language, threats, or personal attacks on members of the public, council members, or staff are not allowed. A person who violates these rules will lose the opportunity to continue to speak.
Thank you. We have a distinguished group of Phoenix leaders here today to be sworn in as boards and commission members. The boards help us craft so many of the most important decisions we make at the city, and we are grateful that you are willing to serve. Vice Mayor, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve mayor and city council boards and commissions nominations as revised.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Passes unanimously. We will now swear this group in. If you could please come forward. Please raise your right hand. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution and laws of the state of Arizona, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and defend them against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of the office of, according to the best of my ability, so help me God. Congratulations. Thank you. Congratulations to our new commissioners, and thank you for serving our community. For many of us, we got our starts on boards and commissions, and we appreciate your work. The City of Phoenix provides an advisory role to the state of Arizona on liquor licenses, so we'll turn to that portion of the agenda. Vice Mayor, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve items 2 through 30, noting that items 21 through 28 and 30 were originally no recommendations and have since been revised. Item 29 was originally recommended for disapproval due to a Finance Department recommendation of disapproval and has since been revised.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. City Clerk, are we ready for ordinances, resolutions, new business, planning, and zoning?
Yes, Mayor.
Vice Mayor, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve items 31 through 97, except the following. Items 45, 46, 58, 59, 68, 77, 78, 80, and 93 through 97. Can the clerk confirm if there are any other items that should be excluded for in-person public comment?
Yes, Mayor, Vice Mayor. Also excluding item 67. That's item 67.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Guardado.
Yes.
Hodge Washington.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Stark.
Yes.
Ansari.
Yes.
Gallego.
Yes.
Passes 8-0.
We next go to item 45, which is a public hearing on the adoption of the property tax levy for 2023-24 fiscal year. We'll open the hearing. We do not have anyone here to comment, so we'll close the public hearing. This represents a small decrease in the property tax rate for the city of Phoenix.
Move to approve item 45.
46.
Second.
I think 46.
46. Okay. Move to approve item 46.
Would you second that again, Councilman Pastor?
Second. Sorry.
Any comments? Roll call.
Guardado.
Yes.
Hodge Washington.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Stark.
Yes.
Ansari.
Yes.
Gallego.
Yes.
Passes 8-0.
Item 58 is Tohono O'odham Nation Gaming Grants. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve item 58.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments? The Tribal Nations Gaming Compact includes funding for work in the community. The City of Phoenix helps pass through the money, sometimes to city projects, but also to important nonprofit work. The City of Phoenix will be funding a variety of projects, including support for 1 in 10 and for women's health care with Planned Parenthood. Roll call.
Guardado,
Yes.
Hodge Washington,
Yes.
O'Brien,
No.
Pastor,
I'm going to explain my vote.
Please do.
So I am a yes, and I know the impact how Tohono O'odham Nation's gaming grants impact the community and are able to provide great services within the community, especially knowing that we had been working on, or many of us have been working on, the Planned Parenthood for a healthcare center, especially in the South Phoenix area. So I am proud to vote on this, and plus the 1 in 10 piece is very important to me. As you can see, my shirt says love. So thank you. Yes.
Robinson, Stark,
Yes.
Waring, Ansari,
Yes.
Gallego.
Yes.
Passes 7-1.
Next, we move to item 59, the public art plan. Vice Mayor.
Move to approve item 59.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a $19.9 million plan over the next 5 years for 42 art projects. I just wanted to take a moment to thank Mitch Menchaca and Carrie Brown and the entire arts and culture team for your very thoughtful public art plan. I'm especially excited for several key District 7 projects that are part of this plan, which includes Tres Rios Wetlands, Rio Reimagined, and improvements to El Reposo Park. This plan also includes funding for the new Levine Heritage Park that is in the works right now, and 3D artwork for along the Western Canalscape. Public art is such an important part of a thriving city here in Phoenix, and I know that District 7 residents will appreciate the public art that's part of this plan for years to come. So thank you so much for your work.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Also want to congratulate Councilwoman Guardado. Her district did quite well in one of the competitive areas for grants, winning a large number of them. And then Councilwoman Stark and Councilwoman Pastor and I have been talking. We are the largest city right now without an HIV or AIDS memorial, and so we have been talking about how to do that, and maybe it wouldn't be the same as other cities, and maybe focus on different areas, but that is something we are hopeful to see in a future public art plan. Roll call.
Guardado,
Very excited to vote yes. Yes.
Hodge Washington,
Yes.
O'Brien,
Yes.
Pastor,
Yes.
Robinson, Stark,
Yes.
Ansari,
Yes.
Gallego.
Yes.
Passes 8-0.
Item 67 is approval to enter into agreements with various school districts for the funding of school resources officers. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve item 67.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second, and there are two items related to school resources officers. The first is existing, and the second one is future school resources. And we do have a speaker. Ann Ender, please come forward.
I'd run, except I have a brace on my knee. Anyway, good morning, and Mayor Gallego and Vice Mayor Ansari and council members. I'm actually here today, Ann Ender, as one of the board members of the North Central Phoenix Homeowners Association. The school districts have been an issue for us. We've spent, Mary Crozier and I have spent much time meeting with both Phoenix Union as well as the Madison School District. So I'm here to encourage that both of these amendments be approved. I think it's the right thing to do. And as you know, public safety is my priority. And one of the reasons, what's really prompted me is that on September 9th of this year, of 2022, Central High School went into a full lockdown because of a possible shooter. There was a fight with 3 boys and then a possible shooter. So it not only locked down Central High School, it locked down Brophy, it locked down Xavier, it locked down the St. Francis Elementary School, and 5 miles away, Sunny Slope High School. That's unacceptable. So here's the part that really gets me. 69% of my property taxes go to Madison School District and Phoenix Union High School District. 39% of those are to the Phoenix Union High School District. I think the public should have much more to say about that than the board. And I say this respectfully to you, Councilwoman Pastor. I know you previously was on the board. We need to be able to sit down and talk about this. But I think this item and being able to put out in front of these districts again that the city is supporting having school resource officers will make a big difference. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilwoman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mayor. I just would like to ask a clarifying question. I don't know, maybe Lori can answer. Item 67, it is for districts who already have had an SRO and want to continue that. Is that correct?
Mayor, members of the council, Councilwoman O'Brien, yes, that's correct. Item 67 is essentially the renewal of contracts with the existing districts.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Mayor. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Roll call.
Guardado.
Yes.
Hodge Washington.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yes.
Robinson. Stark.
Yes.
Ansari.
Yes.
Gallego.
Yes.
Passes 8-0.
Item 68 is approval to enter into agreements with various school districts for potential future school resource officers. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve item 68.
Second.
We have a motion
Second.
and 2 seconds. But I think I heard Councilwoman Pastor first. Councilwoman O'Brien, did you have comments on this item?
I do, Mayor. So I am thrilled that additional schools are requesting school resource officers. For some of these schools, their SRO is their first positive interaction with law enforcement agents. However, I also know that Phoenix is dangerously low on officers right now. We are approximately 560 sworn officers short, and unfortunately, we don't have the capacity to provide an SRO to every school who is requesting them today. So I have a couple questions that I would like to ask. We passed, the previous item was to pass SROs who have been in schools and are continuing them. Can we explain where an SRO is within our officer ranks?
Mayor, members of the council, Councilwoman O'Brien, up here with me today is Executive Assistant Chief Sean Connolly, and he can assist with answering that question.
Thank you.
Mayor, members of council, Councilwoman O'Brien, thank you for the question. Currently, as we stand today, the school resource program falls within our patrol division. And so what we have in the precincts are SROs that are assigned to schools within the precinct boundaries under the leadership of that precinct commander. And currently, as we look, we have 61 of those, thank you, 61 of those currently staffed throughout the city. And so if your question is how are those staffed, it's in the patrol division, it's under the leadership of the precinct commander, and geographically bounded within those precincts. And the reason we did that was so that the relationship between the school and those precinct commanders, those CAOs, and those net teams and those patrol officers has a little bit additional connectivity as they navigate their work days and their work weeks.
Okay. So this item is a conditional approval for SROs, correct?
Mayor, members of the council, Councilwoman O'Brien, what we're asking for today is for the council to provide approval to enter into conditional IGAs with each of the districts that have asked beyond the existing districts in order to be able to assess whether or not we can provide additional SROs in schools, and to also work with them on some of the terms as it relates to the model of SRO, whether it's a single school or multi-school model. We do have one district that is asking for officers to be a regional response, meaning that they wouldn't be stationed on campus, but that they would be available in case of an incident. So there are different requests that we're receiving, and we're trying to navigate through, one, how many of those we can actually accommodate given the staffing challenges you mentioned, and then two, what sorts of innovative models might we be able to explore in order to meet the future demand.
And Lori, can you tell me how many officers would we need to fulfill the new requests we have?
Mayor, members of the council, Councilwoman O'Brien, that's an excellent question. If we were to fulfill those requests on a one-to-one model, we would need the 3 additional officers to fill the existing 4 SRO slots, and then we would also need an additional 46 officers to fill the new requests. Now, some of those, as I mentioned, are asking for something different than a one-to-one on-campus model, and so we would have to account for that going forward, but it would be 46 on a one-to-one basis.
And how would that impact our patrol units?
Mayor,
Chief
members
Connolly.
of the council, Councilwoman O'Brien, I'll defer to Chief Connolly to speak about that.
Mayor, members of council, Councilwoman O'Brien, if we're talking 46 positions, or that's 4 squads, 10-officer squads, and that would be incredibly challenging, and we could use some different vernacular on how impactful that would be to the patrol division. It would require us to take a huge step back in the things that we're doing and really look at what we would have to stop doing to be able to add 40 additional officers to the patrol division in the SRO program. It would be a significant resource allocation for this organization currently.
Thank you, Chief. So I want to be able to give an officer to every school who requests one. However, due to our severe shortages in staffing, we're going to have to be able to come up with some creative solutions. And what I'd like to do is add an amendment to this item that would direct staff to do a couple of things. I have spoken to Council Member Robinson as well as the mayor about having staff explore doing an IGA opportunity with our neighboring cities and towns that may be able to help us fulfill these SRO requests in some of our schools. Additionally, I'd like staff to start creating a civilian position for school resource officers so that either our retired officers who are still wanting to work can come back to serve as in Phoenix and serve as a school resource officer, or maybe additionally folks who might be coming out of the military and have some of the training and capability to do this could fill these positions. Mayor, Councilman Robinson made a couple of phone calls. Maybe he could speak to what he found out this morning as well. I would be much appreciative.
Thank you. We'll go to Kevin Robinson.
Okay. Mayor, thank you very much, and Councilwoman O'Brien, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on a couple of things. I'll back up first because I want to make mention of the fact that I had Executive Assistant Chief Connolly and Jody Wolf both in my office last Friday, and they did an exceptional job of laying out, explaining what resources the Phoenix Police Department has available. And so I thank you for that. And Chief Connolly, I'm really happy to hear you say the department does not want to go backwards. And, I'm going to remember that, because it's the right thing to do, and I really appreciate you saying that. We shouldn't be going backwards. To that end, Councilwoman O'Brien mentioned that I made a couple phone calls this morning, And probably one of the best things we can do as you go about trying to figure out how we can fill these positions is, as we have people leaving the service, as we have people retiring, one of the best things we probably could do is to convince them to go into the reserve program and be able to pull from that pool of former officers who still have their certification, who still have the ability to perform the functions of a school resource officer or a school safety officer, whichever, but I know we have options available to us there. I talked to Matt Giordano, the Executive Director for Arizona Post, Police Officer Standards and Training Board, and one of the things that we should not ignore is an opportunity for us as we ask staff to explore what other options are available to us, to look into the position of a specialty police officer. Now, obviously, it would need the blessing of Arizona Post, but what more importantly, it's going to need a police department pushing that. It might, not saying it will, but it might be a way for us to answer the problems that we have with the schools that are asking for SROs and us not actually having the bodies for them right now. Because one of the examples a specialty officer could come from, the ranks it could come from, is from the military. But again, it would have to be a discussion, specific discussion with the Phoenix Police Department and Arizona Post to explore that possibility. So I would ask that you do that as well, as part of that amendment to Councilwoman O'Brien's request, as we try to figure out how can we fill these positions. And Ms. Bays, you had mentioned that we would need an additional 46, did you say 46 officers, if it's a one-on-one type of formula. I don't think that we would necessarily need that one-on-one formula throughout. Ms. Ender had talked about the need to talk to some of these school districts and try to figure out some type of a program that we can come to with them as to what resources they would actually need. It may not be a one-on-one type of thing. So I'm, along with Councilwoman O'Brien, I'm asking staff to do the best they can at exploring what other options we have available. Because I know there's not a single one of us in this room that are listening that want to leave, our school children vulnerable. We know that. Sean and I and Jody had that conversation on Friday. There's no doubt in my mind they're doing everything they possibly can to make this work within what they have available to them. I think it's time now for us to figure out some other options that might be available to us. So thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Robinson. Councilwoman Pastor.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually would, and maybe it wouldn't be, what I don't want is the resources to be taken away from the NET squad or the CAOs. And so I don't know how we do that, because at one point that's what I was told. And I think that's a critical piece within our community. And so I want to be able to preserve our NET and CAO squads as we're looking for additional SROs. I agree with both council members. As a former Phoenix Union board member for 12 years, have been going through this deep dialogue of SROs, no SROs, yes SROs, no SROs, and this is actually a very complex issue. All of us want the safety of schools. All of us want to make sure our kids, as they walk onto those campuses, are going to be safe, going to be taught, and there's no issue. However, with an officer or with an SRO or no SRO, shootings are not prevented, and that's where we have to kind of get cleared in. Shootings are not prevented. However, with SROs on there, immediate impact can happen when there's a shooting. The other piece that you need to understand is that with SROs on campus, what happens is mandatory reporting. There is a required by law for mandatory reporting. And so mandatory reporting with an SRO on campus assists in all those pieces. So there's a lot of pieces that go on with an SRO on campus. I feel like we as a community and as a police force really need to engage in community or in a collective conversation as to how do we balance all of this within the school system and what is really needed within internally in the school systems with also the security piece, because many school systems have security, or at least high schools have security pieces as to what needs to happen in training and enhancing the security side, so then there's a balance. So I think this is a further discussion. I'm fine. I think this is great that we are doing this and looking at this, but we do need additional 46 officers, and I feel like the civilian piece would help with that. So thank you for thinking of that.
Thank you. We want everyone in the city of Phoenix to be safe, but schools are particularly a priority. We want kids to feel good about going to school, and we want parents to feel comfortable sending them. I hope as we allocate these additional resources, it will be data-driven and really look at where are the calls for the service and greatest need. Are there additional things we could do to make this a more attractive position? Will you explain the teaching requirements for SRO and whether that could be waived for the first year, for example?
Mayor, members of council, I think that's a fabulous question, because I think sometimes when we look at the mission of a SRO within a school environment, there are obligations for teaching that go on, and I think that teaching is some of the greatest impact those SROs have on the children's lives. Whether it's civics, they become mentors in a lot of ways, and so that curriculum in partnership with the Department of Ed is galvanized over the time in the summer when they go to their conference, and so that is a really important aspect of it. And I think what I also heard you saying is how can we incentivize trying to get more officers to raise their hands to do this incredibly important mission. And I think as we look and move forward, one of the most important things, whether it's this mission or any mission within this profession, is ensuring they feel supported. And when they're in those school environments, which can be very complicated and complex at times, that they're trained to the highest level in competency, and that they feel supported not only by this city, but by the community and the district. Some of the things that we do in this organization, as you know, there's almost 80 different career paths within the Phoenix Police Department. So career development and exploration is really important to us. That's why we have put into policy 80 hours of shadowing and temps. And I know the current pool of SROs do a really good job of reaching out to those officers that demonstrate we want to align people with their passion, and those that have the ability to communicate with kids in a school environment and work with staff. And so I know that shadowing goes on. There is also this selection process of recruitment that we do traditionally within the department that involves an oral board, a resume review. I think there's additional we can do to interweave the school into the process that I think will add additional value. But I think at the end of the day, it's support. It's aligning people with their passion, and then figuring out ways to afford opportunity. But we've talked about these options that are being discussed, whether civilianization, the Reserve Bureau, I think, has an untapped resource. I think those are really valuable recommendations by everybody here today.
The schools that are looking for SROs are concentrated in certain police precincts. So like Estrella, Maryville, a lot of interest there. Can you talk about how other precincts might be able to help with this, or does it really need to come from those precincts?
Mayor and members of council, so when we asset mapped all the requests and visually looked at it, there is a predominant increase in the South Mountain Precinct, the Maryville Estrella Mountain Precinct, southern parts of the Cactus Park Precinct, and the southern western sections of the Mountain View precincts. And so I think this is further part of that discussion where, just based on our resource allocation currently, to Councilman Robinson's perspective, we have to look at this through a different set of lenses. And we've had discussions about when we were ripe with resources, we were able to put these in these precinct silos and run it. I think there's a coming together with Commander Garza at the helm now of looking at a centralized approach to this, to all come together as a unified family in a city to be able to get this service to some of our most important elements of our community.
I think that makes sense. During the time that Councilwoman Pastor and I have been here, we've really changed the models of how much it's focused on precincts or not, and we want to make sure those precincts have the resources they need, but also keep our students and school faculty safe. Does one need to be a citizen of the United States to be a Phoenix police officer?
Mayor and members of council, yes.
We have individuals who are here through DACA who are very interested in serving both in police and military. Is there possibly an opportunity that they might be able to serve as school resources officers in some modified version of the program?
Mayor and members of council, I think we're happy to explore and be involved in those discussions. Obviously, that would involve a lot of other complexities outside our control in the police department. But I think any time we can look at a modern opportunity to diversify our work pool and add additional value to life experiences, but those conversations would have to be had at some different levels than us in the police department. But we're open for all those types of discussions.
I just think we got to be creative if we want to make sure we accomplish multiple goals at once. Most positions at the City of Phoenix are open to DACA recipients, and people have excelled in their service in those positions. And maybe this is an opportunity to solve a problem in a more creative way and let people who are excited to serve have that opportunity. When Councilwoman Pastor was talking about mandatory reporting, I remember a few years ago when we were discussing SROs, there were just some really powerful stories, like a young person who was unfortunately being abused at home but felt comfortable sharing the story with a SRO with whom he had a longer relationship. And it was just one of those moments where you were glad that we had the program and what a difference it might make for so many young people. So I think we got to find a way to be creative and make things work. Additional comments? Vice Mayor.
Mayor.
We'll go to the Vice Mayor and then Councilwoman Stark.
Thank you. Just a quick comment. I will support this today, and I think, you know, having grown up with school mass shooting drills at my school, I would feel very comfortable having SROs, and I do think that is an important piece of safety. However, I just do also want to set the expectation for the public that I don't think we can rely on SROs to be responsible for keeping schools safe from mass shootings. That's just a fact, and I think any expectation otherwise is somewhat of a fallacy. We just saw in the news these last couple weeks that the SRO who was on campus at Parkland was, his charges were dropped, and he will not be going to prison, but that was an example of, very prominent example where an SRO, did not do what they were supposed to do, and I think the expectation that an SRO will put their life on the line when someone is on campus with an AR-15 mass murdering children is also a huge expectation. So I think bigger picture, just want to call on the state legislature and our national leaders. I think if we're really going to solve school safety issues, we need to have significant gun control reform in this country. But again, support the SROs, but I don't want there to be, I don't think we can rely on SROs to keep, as Councilwoman Pastor said, schools safe from mass shootings. That's not realistic. So thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Councilwoman Stark and then Councilwoman Guardado.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank Councilwoman O'Brien and Councilman Robinson and yourself for actually trying to look at ways to serve the schools that do want our school resource officers. And I really welcome all these ideas. I think they're worth exploring. The one question I would have would be with the civilians. And so maybe we could ask the chief, what kind of training would they have, and how would they still rely on a uniform to come and assist if need be?
Mayor, members of council, Councilwoman Stark, I think that's a great question. And as we have been looking and visualizing innovative ways to do things, I think you heard Councilman Robinson talk about a partnership with ASPOST. And I think that requires all of us as a collective getting together and putting down in policy and in paper in congruency with everybody that's involved in this and delineating what we would want that training to look like. This is going to be something new. As you know, we had tremendous success in recruitment for our civilian investigator position, overwhelming. And I sense that there would be a significant interest. So we would want to work with our law enforcement partners, our school district partners, our ASPOST partners, and build this. The gun, wearing a firearm to campus involves significant training and due diligence and responsibilities. But I have faith that we would be able to put something very professional and modern together for this. And I think this has symmetry to Councilwoman Ansari's comments on the SRO is not the only component in the wheel of safety at a school. There's a lot of other work that goes on collectively by the police departments, by the county. This police department is not Uvalde. We have demonstrated at Bostrom, Central, and Chavez that we will run towards this threat at a very professional, intense level to protect our children. And so I think as we move forward, we would build something similar for these civilians.
Thank you. And thank you again, Mayor. I am going to support this amendment. I think this is a great direction and a great way to think outside of the box and try to solve a problem. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. We'll go to Councilwoman Guardado and then the Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, as a mom of 2 young children, I understand the need of our SROs. I know that both my kids' schools went into lockdown in the last year, and as a mom, that is devastating to hear and understand what could be happening in our children's schools. And I completely support our SROs and wanting to make sure that we had more of them. I support the Vice Mayor's comments about how is it that the state could come into play in this and really help out and not just leaving the burden all on Phoenix. To figure things out for our schools and thinking of creative ways on how we can actually make that happen. But I just had, I had a couple of concerns because this is the first time I hear about this amendment. I would just want to say, while we want to support the schools, I also don't want to take shortcuts on training or vetting to meet the need. So if the direction today is to research options and return to council, I can support the item. But if it is to implement these changes without additional input, I would want to stay with the item as agendized. Like, are we looking into these options, or is this something that we're implementing?
Mayor, members of the council, Councilman Guardado, if I may just add something that may be useful to the council as you consider this. The majority of the funding for these SRO positions, 75%, in fact, comes from the Arizona Department of Education, from the vast majority of the schools that receive SRO fundings, or that receive SROs. So we would need to have conversation both with the ADE as well as with the school districts related to the use of that funding and whether or not a civilian model or a specialty police officer model would be acceptable as uses of that funding, because the majority of the school districts are dependent upon that funding to fund those positions. And so I just want to put that forward as something for the council to consider as you're making your decisions, because it is something that would need to be explored further.
Lori, Mayor, I had just had another question. And what would be the cost to this amendment? What would be the cost? What would be new resources? What would that cost? I guess, Jeff.
Mayor, members of the council, as Lori mentioned, the majority of the SRO positions, 75% of which are funded by the Arizona Department of Education via the schools. And so we cover the cost of 25%. So if we're talking about existing resources, it's technically already within our budget because there's the cost of a whole officer is already budgeted. However, when an SRO is picked up by a school, they offset that cost by about 75%. However, if I'm listening to you correctly and hearing the conversation about creating a different type of position, that would require a budget addition to the police department. We've done a lot of things over the last couple of months, and there is no more capacity within that department. I'm just being honest with you in terms of budgetary capacity. With the pay increases, the raises, as well as the civilian investigators, those were all, they used up a majority of the slack that exists within the police department. So if we do go down this route, and I'm totally supportive of it, it will require an addition to the police department budget. And that cost, I don't know. It depends on how many positions we're talking about adding. And again, whether or not Arizona Department of Education will cover the 75% or not.
Mayor, I had another question.
Please.
And I guess my last question, Chief or Lori, is it possible right now with the new schools that are asking for SROs, is it possible to do some pairings depending on the distance of the schools while we figure this other piece out?
Mayor, members of the council, Councilwoman Bordado, yes, that is something that we are also exploring. So districts that have existing SROs that have asked for additional schools to be added would have the option of pairing up schools with existing SROs. So, for example, if there's a school that has an SRO and then down the street there's another school that doesn't have an SRO and they're both within the same district, that district could agree, with us to share SROs. Now, there are some logistics that go into that, but we do think that's a viable model. We have that model in existence in small numbers in other school districts already, and so that is something that we're looking at already. And part of the reason why we mapped the location of each of the existing SROs as well as the requesting schools so that we can identify those opportunities.
Great, thank you so much. And again, I support the original motion. I support our SROs and hoping that we can come together and find a solution that will work for our budget and will work to keeping our children safe. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, and I might turn to Councilman O'Brien to respond to Councilwoman Guardado. Just in terms of timeline, the one item that I would see value is letting staff move forward as soon as possible on IGAs with other departments if they did have officers available to serve as SROs, particularly in the districts where we share jurisdiction. So there are districts on here, for example, where some of the officers would be Tolleson Elementary School. The school might be in Phoenix, but they'd be very near, and some of the schools in the district would be served by other departments. So if there's a chance to move forward in those, then at least give staff the opportunity to have those conversations. But the question was directed to Councilwoman O'Brien, so I will turn to her.
Thank you, Mayor. In answer to Councilwoman Guardado, it is to have them come back with what these solutions would look like. It is not to implement them, except for I would support having them if we can enter into IGAs. But the part about either creating civilian positions or looking at the reserve program, I would ask staff that they would look into all of that and then bring it back to us. But if we could enter into IGAs with surrounding agencies, I think that would provide resource officers to schools who want them as soon as possible. I would like them to implement that because school will start in many of our districts at the end of July, so well before this council meets again. And I, Mayor, also have a question to Jeff and Lori about budget, if I may.
Please.
Jeff and Lori, if we, in an IGA situation with another city, how would that impact our budget, or would it?
Councilwoman, Mayor, members of the council, it really depends on the structure of the IGA. If we're simply just a pass-through, there theoretically could be no impact to us. I would imagine there would be some sort of exchange of liability, though, that they would want to talk about from an insurance perspective, so that could be one piece. The other piece about that they may also want to consider is depending on how they staff it, if they staff it on overtime, if they staff it with straight time, there would also be an impact to their pension unfunded liability. So they could also ask us to pay a portion of these costs over and above what they budgeted for their own individual pension for each of those officers. But it really comes down to how we'd structure the IGA with the individual cities and towns, assuming that they have capacity to enter into these agreements.
Okay, and then I am curious if somebody knows the history, and if they don't know today, could we find out potentially? I'm curious how it is that the school district pay 25% or 75%, but we pay the other 25%. How it came to be that breakdown in cost.
Councilwoman O'Brien, Mayor, members of the council, we'll get back to you on that. I can tell you just from the amount of time that I've been involved with the police department from a budgetary perspective, I think it was just the nature of the way the grant was structured. A lot of our grants aren't 100%, and sometimes they also are based on, at one point they may have been 100%, but as other costs that are compensation related have risen, they ended up at a residual amount, which was the 75%. That could be, that's my guess, but we'll go back and do the research. There could have been a point in time where they were 100%, but then as compensation rose across the board, the amount that they funded still stayed static, and it ended up in a 75%. But we can go back and research that.
Okay, I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
And Mayor?
Thank you.
Julie.
Yes, Mayor and Council, I also just wanted to mention that if we do enter into an IGA with other cities or towns in regards to this, that would need to come back to Council for approval.
And I think we should also include tribal departments if they are willing. Several of these are in Levine, and so I don't know if that's an opportunity or not. We'll go to Councilwoman Pastor and then Councilmember Kevin Robinson.
Thank you. So my understanding of paying of SROs comes from many different resources. One is a school district applies for a grant at ADE. And there was this grant that came out, and everybody then goes and applies for it, and then they're selected. The schools are selected. So ADE pays a portion. Then the school district pays a portion. And then another piece, what I was hearing is the city pays a portion. So there's 3 different resources that pay for an SRO on campus. And my understanding is that when you apply for the ADE grant, you're agreeing also to put a portion of your school district's dollars into an SRO. So that is already agreed upon as they are requesting SROs from us. So my question is, additional dollars for civilian officers, would there be additional dollars for civilian officers? Because I think I answered my own. I don't think there'll be additional dollars for civilian. The ADE grant requires an SRO to be a police officer, not a civilian. Am I wrong or right?
Mayor, members of the council, Councilwoman Pastor, you are correct. The grant currently requires for those dollars to pay for an officer and not a civilian. That's part of what we would need to explore, is whether or not that could change.
Okay, so then our next step in this amendment would be to go talk to ADE and say we have a shortage of police officers. And because of that, this is one way we think we can get SROs into the schools or solve this situation, is by looking at civilians.
Mayor, members of the council, Councilwoman Pastor, that is correct. That would be one of our next steps, is to talk with ADE about that very thing.
And then after that, once that happens, then eventually you'll come back to us to say, hey, there's an agreement amongst ADE and the city of Phoenix, and probably going to be other cities, I'm assuming, since we're leading, and other cities will then say, let's solve this, let's go, let's work together and happen. My question, and so I understand that piece. I just wanted to put that out.
And just to add one other piece component to that, consistent with what Chief Connolly mentioned, I believe the ASPOS would also come into play here as well, right. Because if there's a gun on campus and a certification required, ASPOS has to oversee that, and I think Councilman Robinson also referenced that as well. So I just wanted to mention that piece too.
Which is exciting because now collectively we're all working together as different agencies coming together to solve, come with a solution. My other question was, I believe as a bigger, at the end of the day, I think we're, SROs, yes, this is a situation that is needed. I think there's a bigger complex dialogue that needs to happen within the community as to how do we keep our schools safe? And how do we keep, I look at it as school gun prevention and preventing guns getting onto the campus. And how do we keep access to young kids being able to purchase guns and bring them on campus? And how do we make them feel safe? Because what's happening right now is the results of students bringing guns on campus is I don't feel safe, I'm feeling bullied, and it's a bigger systemic problem that is happening within our schools, and us as leaders should be in that dialogue to be able to understand what's happening. We also have our mental peace going on, and so there's just a lot of different elements. This is one piece of the puzzle as of right now, but I believe as a city, as we lead, we need to continue to look in that space and be able to have those dialogue and conversations with the school districts. It's important. But my thing, going back to why I originally asked, was the funding, to be able to pare down and demonstrate where all the funding comes from and how that looks like. So thank you.
Thank you, and I think we may need a change of legislation in addition to ADE working with us for certain portions of the program. Kevin Robinson.
Thank you, Mayor. And I was going to add that part about legislation, be it good, bad, or indifferent. I remember when we really engaged in the SRO program too many years ago. But anyway, the whole idea behind, just to give a little bit of background clarification, the idea of a 75-25 split was to allow the police departments, quite honestly, to still have control over the employees that they had assigned to the schools. So there had to be an understanding that the individuals did not work exclusively for the schools, so that we understand that. But I want to support the amendment that Councilwoman O'Brien made, and that is for us to look at other options. The options I suggested dealing with if there's the possibility to add more reserve officers to the SRO program. They are already certified. There's no additional steps to, quite honestly, go through. They are able to, provide it, they're interested in it, provided we can put a program together. They are certified, they're capable of moving right into those roles immediately. I also mentioned a specialty officer position, and that was for lack of a better word, but they are limited certification police officers. That is a discussion I'm asking the police department to have with Arizona Post to see if that is viable. Then we would also, as the mayor mentioned, we would also have to check with the state from a legislative standpoint to see that, to ensure that that specific certification or that classification would be allowable. I mean, that's a part of the research that we're asking for. And the question comes up as to whether or not what is this going to cost? Quite honestly, it's going to spend a little bit of time on our part to sit down with these other entities to find out if they are viable. The police department I know is very supportive of, Chief Sullivan is very supportive of the reserve program. It's led by a former career officer and a current reserve officer, Joe Klima, who a lot of people know. and they are chomping at the bit to do what they can for our community. So I was asking that we check with them to see if there's a possibility in whatever plan we can come up with to move those reserve officers into those school resource positions to help everyone to be as safe as we possibly can be. You know, that's what we're looking for. That's the easiest thing. Do that. Check with Arizona Post, with Matt Giordano, and then the folks at the Arizona Department of Education to see if a limited police officer, limited certification police officer position is viable. And that's going to take a little bit longer. We have to be realistic about that. That's the component that might entice somebody who might be retiring from another career that might want to do this for a while. And, you know, again, a little bit longer, it's something for us to look into. It's going to be a discussion. So with that, and I state again that the amendment that Councilwoman O'Brien made, that we're asking the police department to explore other options available, I wholeheartedly support that, because we do need to do something. You know, the last thing any one of us wants is a tragedy to occur at a school that requested an SRO and we couldn't give them one. So whatever steps we can take, I know you guys are already, you know, burning the candle at both ends. I appreciate it, but I think it's something that we should do. Spend a little bit of time talking to folks, figure out if it's viable. If it's not, come back and tell us. And, you know, I think you guys see that this council is very supportive of public safety, and we'll try to find another way around to try to make it work that way. So, Mayor, thank you very much for the time.
Thank you. And we have not actually taken action on the amendment. So the Vice Mayor made the motion and Councilwoman Pastor seconded it. So I think we now need to ask the Vice Mayor, would you accept the amendment?
Yep, and my understanding is the amendment includes IGAs with neighboring jurisdictions and directing staff to explore other solutions. It will come back to council. I accept that. That's fine.
Councilwoman Pastor, the second.
Sure.
All right, so now we actually have it on the floor, and we'll go to Councilwoman Guardado.
Thank you, Mayor. So I think I am fine with staff getting these ideas vetted with our different public safety and education partners, but I don't think we should be forming IGAs or taking action until we additionally have guidance on what budgetary this would cost us and having input from all the different partners. I think I'm starting to understanding a little bit, but I think these things make me a little bit more comfortable, but just making sure that we're not putting IGAs together until we don't understand what the impact as a whole would actually have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And as we talk about funding, another source that we have used to fund SROs is during the Obama administration. Through the Department of Justice, we received some funding for school resource officers. It was one of their priorities. I don't remember that being on the eligible list in the most recent round of grants, but there are many different ways we've funded this program in the past. Okay, does anyone have any comments before we vote? Roll call.
Guardado.
So just to understand, we're just exploring with the amendment, correct? We're not taking any real action or implementing anything?
I think the only thing they could do without coming back to us is reserves, which they're already authorized to do.
Okay, with that, yes.
Hodge Washington.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Pastor.
If you see something, hear something, say something. Yes.
Robinson. Yes. Stark.
Yes.
Ansari.
Yes.
Gallego.
Yes.
Passes 8-0.
Item 77 is Innovation 27 Workforce Training and Education Collaborative Architectural Services. Councilwoman Guardado, did you want to make this motion?
Yes, Mayor. I would like to make a motion to approve item 77.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Councilwoman Guardado, comments?
Yes, thank you. I would like to take a moment to congratulate the team from Gensler for their selection today and the incredible work of Chris Mackey and Carla Scott on bringing this item before us today. When I first brought the community plan to our Innovation 27 project forward, Gensler joined us in a walkthrough of the old Kmart building. From the beginning, the Gensler team believed in this project. They worked diligently on a feasibility study that helped us take an idea into a beautiful professional plan. With their initial work, we have been able to secure incredible partners in ASU, Westmac, and the Maricopa County College District. Gensler has helped elevate a vision that came from our neighbors into a projected that will bring opportunity for generations. I am extremely excited to continue this project with Gensler as the lead. I just can't wait to see all of the students, all of the parents, everyone that will be coming into this building and getting a great education, finding a new career and a new path for them. And with that, I am going to be supporting this, very excited to do so. And thanks to the rest of the council that has supported this project since the beginning. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I will also join in congratulating Gensler as well as Kitchell, who we previously approved as our construction partner on this. I want to thank the federal government, the Biden administration, for their partnership. We are paying with American Rescue Plan dollars, so it's a multi-level government success in addition to so many of our education partners. Hopefully, we will help connect people to higher paying jobs of the future with this important workforce training center. Roll call.
Guardado.
Yes.
Hodge Washington.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Pastor.
Congratulations, Guardado. I know you've been working hard on this. Yes.
Robinson. Yes. Stark.
Yes.
Ansari.
Yes.
Gallego.
Yes.
Passes 8-0.
Items 78 and 80 are both related to legislative appropriations and funding for transportation projects. Do we have a motion on 78 and 80?
Move to approve items 78 and 80.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Councilwoman O'Brien.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Both of these items are related to doing roads in District 1, and I couldn't be more thrilled to have this partnership with the state, and I wanted to give a special thanks to Senators Carroll, Kavanaugh, and Hoffman, as well as former Senator Kaiser and Representatives Livingston and Chaplik for the work on this item. Thank you so much. It is much needed in our district.
Thank you. Roll call.
Guardado.
Yes.
Hodge Washington.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yes.
Robinson. Yes. Stark.
Yes.
Ansari.
Yes.
Gallego.
Yes.
Passes 8-0.
We next move to the planning and zoning portion of our agenda. Between all items on the City Council today, if we approved all of them, it would be 462 units of housing that would be enabled and entitled. The first two we will take together are 93 and 94, which are both related to the southwest corner of 51st Avenue and Broadway Road. I will open a public hearing. To our City Clerk, have we received any comments or requests to speak?
No, Mayor.
I will close the public hearing. These are both in District 7. I will turn to the Vice Mayor.
Motion to approve per the Planning Commission recommendation and adopt the related resolution.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on item 93. Any comments? Roll call.
Guardado.
Yes.
Hodge Washington.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Stark.
Yes.
Ansari.
Yes.
Gallego.
Yes.
Passes 8-0.
Item 94, Vice Mayor.
Motion to approve item 94 per the Planning Commission recommendation and adopt the related ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments? Roll call.
Guardado.
Yes.
Hodge Washington.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Pastor,
Yes.
Robinson, Stark,
Yes.
Ansari,
Yes.
Gallego.
Yes.
Passes 8-0.
Item 95 is related to the northeast corner of 12th Street and Roberts Road in District 3. We'll open the public hearing. We have two members of the public to testify. We will be, let's see. And these came in, let's see, after the sheet was printed, I'll ask our city clerk to call the two speakers.
Mayor, we have Monta Reed.
Perfect. The floor is yours.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for allowing me to be here. My name is Monta Red. My address is 13827 North 12th Street, Phoenix, 85022. My property sides the applicant who wants to rezone his property to R18. My property is currently S1 as his. I purchased my property 23 years ago in a neighborhood comprised of affordable housing on larger lots with appealing open spaces between properties. The S1 zoning in this area has been subdivided years ago into smaller lots, but the larger open spaces between homes maintained intact. The appeal of my property is ongoing due to its ample open space and privacy that the properties on my street enjoy. The city's personal preferences in this case have been used to approve rezoning this property. Zoning regulations and some zoning requirements have been eliminated for the sole benefit of a limited liability company and to allow the city to get rid of affordable housing that occupy larger, more desirable lots. The rezone package outlines the rules for notifying neighbors in a 600-foot radius. It was discovered at the village committee meeting on May 17th that the neighborhood had possibly not been properly notified. Vice Chair Member Vogelson stated that the applicant signed an affidavit as evidence that they had met the notification requirements. The application actually submitted 2 notarized affidavits indicating that 2 notices had been sent out and a neighborhood meeting had been held. The first notification was supposedly mailed on March 22nd and the second on April 23rd, 23. Committee member Perez, who lives in the 600-foot radius, and I ever received this notice. I had an email correspondence with Village Planning on March 30th, 2023, and again on April 14th, 2023. Mr. Klimek had not received any affidavits that notifications had been mailed.
If you could give us your final thought.
I'm sorry?
The time has expired.
Oh, I thought I got 10 minutes.
Not, Councilwoman Stark,
I'm the appellant.
Okay, then go ahead.
I had email correspondence with Village Planning on March 30th and again on April 4th. Mr. Klimek had not received any affidavits that neighborhood notices had been mailed. Mr. Klimek told me that he had spoken with the applicant on March 30th and was told the notices were in the mail and I should receive them shortly. I never did. The applicant was aware that this March 22nd letter never had been received and could have done something about it back then. I also submitted 2 requests to public records on March 30th and again on March 8th. The documents I received did not include any neighborhood notification letters, notarized affidavits, nothing. The applicant responded at the meeting that a trusted consultant who he did not remember the name of, sent out the letters, and they would verify this after the meeting. However, they never did. After this meeting, I canvassed the area with the mailing list, and I downloaded from the city's link. I could not find one single property owner that received either letter. If you received the village committee meeting notes, you will see members were concerned about the possible lack of neighborhood outreach and suggested that the applicant send another notification letter and hold a meeting. The applicant sent out a letter, however, it did not include property owners in a 600-mile radius. The letter stated that the rezoning had already been approved and the timing was such that it was after the deadline to submit comments to the Planning Commission. I attended this meeting, and every question I asked went unanswered. I was told by the applicant that he would not know anything until a civil engineer reviewed the property. He did tell me he was not going to be constructing a fence at the back of the property, which my property sides and backs. Any retention basin berm placed on this property that fills to the capacity will overflow and flood my property instead of gently allowing a slow trickle stream of water that my property can absorb. Another deviation from the rules that the city is not requiring the applicant to comply with is R18 zoning ordinances, which require a 70-foot lot width and side setbacks that are unattainable with the applicant's proposed building plans. Every rezoning case I have ever read or attended, there is always a paragraph in the staff report that states development and use of the site is subject to all applicable codes and ordinances. Per the staff report dated May 5th, the city will deviate from this requirement for the applicant. The city will establish his lot as a separate two-lot subdivision located in the middle of an already established subdivision. So he will not have to comply with zoning variances or ordinances that everybody else on this street is required to comply with. It is concerning to me that the City Council report eliminated a stipulation that both the Village Committee and the Planning Commission required. The stipulation requiring the applicant to have a 10-foot setback from my property was eliminated. The large square footage of the applicant's proposed houses do not fit with R18 zoning setbacks, and with the elimination of this stipulation, the applicant would be allowed to build his house as close to my property as he wants. The city is also violating Article 1109.2, which states that a lot shall not be reduced in any manner below the lot area and dimension requirements of an ordinance, or if a lot is already less than the minimum, which all of our lots are, such lot area or dimension shall not be reduced further. I have already mentioned in previous statements that our street has severe flooding issues, so I will not go over that as I have already addressed that in prior meetings. I do want to mention that the pictures that I included with my statement show our street flooding issues that are not the 100-year flood. Those pictures are from typical heavy rains that occur every single year. Due to the lack of zoning and permit enforcement, there have been very recent alterations to properties in this immediate area that will negatively affect and add to the flooding issues our street already has. Violations that include building a 2.5-car garage, a self-contained metal house, and a large barn, all completed without the required variance or permits. The most drastic alteration was completed by the village's HOA, which is one street south of our neighborhood. They filed a civil lawsuit in January 2003 due to 10 of their properties getting flooded. Their solution was completed a month ago. They built a berm and retention basin that now diverts all of their floodwater to our street. The applicant building 2 proposed houses on a lot meant for one with a high lot coverage of 38% and building over a natural waterway that exists on his property will be another factor adding to our flooding issues. I am not trying to trample on the applicant's right to build on their land. However, it is the duty of the landowner to utilize their property in a reasonable manner and avoid injuring adjoining properties. This property could easily be rezoned to R110 with one large single-family house that would be compatible and beneficial for the neighborhood. Excusing the applicant from applying with notification requirements, variance requirements, and zoning ordinance presents a very clear indication that this rezone request is not appropriate and the applicant's proposed plans do not comply with existing properties. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Councilwoman Stark.
if Josh could just speak to the notification and then talk about, even with R18, they still need to meet zoning standards, which include setbacks and various other development standards. So if he could speak to that, I appreciate it.
Mayor, Councilwoman Stark, we are taking a look at the file right now. There, by all indications, the applicant has met the notification requirements. We find documentation to that effect. With respect to the zoning standards on the site, when the site does come in to actually develop, it will be required to adhere to the zoning ordinance standards, setbacks, lot coverage, as part of a site review process before it can get building permits. If the site needs to deviate from any of those standards, a variance would be required.
Right, thank you. And also during that site review, you also look at physical constraints and look at issues like flooding as well.
Mayor, Councilwoman Stark, thank you for the follow-up. Yes, as part of our site plan and building review, there would be a grading and drainage plan required, grading and drainage analysis done by staff to ensure that off-site flows are retained on-site. Happy to answer any other questions.
So, in essence, you're saying there are so many steps that they will have to go through if this zoning is approved.
Mayor, Councilwoman Stark, that's correct. And we'd be happy to meet with the resident or any residents to walk them through the process, walk them through all the additional steps necessary. So happy to connect with residents after this meeting to walk them through the various steps that are still required before a building permit could be issued on the site.
So I would appreciate you doing that, but unless there are other comments, Mayor, I'm ready to make the motion.
Okay, and we do have the applicant is here available to speak if necessary, but it sounds like you're ready to go. So I will close the public hearing.
I would ask, okay, and I would just suggest that the applicant also follow up as well with both staff and the speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. We've closed the public hearing, and we will turn to Councilwoman Stark for a motion.
Thank you. I move to approve per the Planning Commission recommendation and adopt the related ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments? Roll call.
Guardado.
Yes.
Hodge Washington.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Stark.
Yes.
Ansari.
Yes.
Gallego.
Yes.
Passes 8-0.
Item 96 and 97 are related items, so we will have a joint hearing and then two motions. They are related to the northeast corner of I-17 and Circle Mountain Road. We'll open the public hearing. No comments. We will close the public hearing. They are in District 1, so I will turn to Councilwoman O'Brien.
I move to approve per the Planning Commission recommendation and adopt the related resolution.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments? Roll call.
Guardado.
Yes.
Hodge Washington.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yes.
Robinson. Yes. Stark.
Yes.
Ansari.
Yes.
Gallego.
Yes.
Passes 8-0.
Item 97, Councilman O'Brien.
I move to approve per the June 23rd, 2023 memo from the PDD director and adopt the related ordinance.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any comments?
Mayor, I just have a brief comment.
Councilwoman O'Brien.
Mayor, thank you so much. Sorry, I just wanted to acknowledge Circle Mountain Holdings LLC that they'll be putting in over $10 million of infrastructure to take water and sewer under the I-17, which will be helpful to future development on the east side of I-17. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And I think one of the issues in this case was traffic on the frontage road. I serve on one of the regional transportation bodies, so if we have good ideas about how we might improve that, we want to address that, and feel free to contact my office. Any additional comments? Roll call.
Guardado.
Yes.
Hodge Washington.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Stark.
Yes.
Ansari.
Yes.
Gallego.
Yes.
Passes 8-0.
That concludes the agendized portion of our meeting. We will now go to the final portion, which is public comment, and I will turn to our city attorney to explain this portion.
Thank you, Mayor. During citizen comment, members of the public may address the City Council for up to 3 minutes on issues of interest or concern to them. The Arizona Open Meeting Law permits the City Council to listen to the comments, but prohibits council members from discussing or acting on the matters presented. The citizen comment session is limited to 30 minutes.
Thank you. We have one member of the public to comment. Barbara Turner, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Mayor and council members. My name is Barbara Turner. I'm with NACA, the Neighborhood Assistance Corporation, and we have an office on 13th Street in Washington, and we assist low to moderate income individuals to purchase an affordable home. I have contacted the various council members and sent information to you. We are looking to help these individuals to construct or purchase an affordable home here in the Phoenix metro area. I currently have 200 people that are qualified, but they're unable to find a home that they can afford. My request to the council members in their various districts is to sell parcels to these individuals so that they can construct a home. We're modeling our program after one that has been in place in Newark, New Jersey, and these individuals are able to purchase a parcel for $1, and then we help them to construct a home. We're looking at factory-built homes that will cost anywhere from $110,000 up to $2,000. So at a future meeting, I am kindly requesting that the council members and the mayor to agree to our program. And today was just to introduce who we are. Our home ownership program is no money down, no closing cost, no PMI, and we do not look at the credit score. The person does not have to be a first-time home buyer. There's no income minimum nor maximum. Our organization has been in business for 38 years, and we have 45 offices in the U.S. I'm happy to accept any questions at this time.
Thank you, and unfortunately, because this is not agendized, we cannot have a back and forth dialogue, but thank you so much for bringing this important topic forward.
Thank you for the opportunity.
With that, we are adjourned.
Get to work with you to see Metro Center take on its next new life. And while it's wonderful about Metro Center, but it's about the surrounding community. It's about what this project will do.